Alright, here's the demo of how this universal clamp works in action in manual mode. It's easiest if you're not, if you've got a workbench or whatever. For the purposes of this, I've got to stay in camera, but I would just put this on the edge of my bench, press it down. All the contact areas are covered by rubber, and now I'm just going to sight down it. There's an extrusion, a line in the extrusion for the guide rod there, and I just line it up. This whole thing's been trued up pretty good so that as this moves up and down, this arm, it stays dead on. Unfortunately, this part has to be done by eye and then corrected for once you start actually sharpening. So once I've got the edge on, I'm going to put the cutting edge up to something that's a straight edge and move that over. And I just need to be more or less parallel to the bulk of the edge. I'm not entirely sure why that works, but it does. Almost every knife that I've ever done falls right in from the tip. Should I need to go more acute at the tip, I can bend this arm out, and that will increase the distance that it has to travel. It'll be a little lower at the tip if I need to make it shorter, so I can adjust for different geometries if I have to. But generally speaking, if you just leave it parallel, put some Sharpie on it. The advantage to doing that as well is that I can move it at any angle I want. If I have to change the angle from the heel to the tip, then I pretty much have to keep it either all the way parallel all the time, or if I'm using an angle, I have to maintain that same angle throughout. See how close I am? A little high. So I've got two choices for how I can adjust this. I can use the Tormek Micro Adjust, or I can crank it on the like your gross adjust and then your fine tuning. Almost. Now if this were a belt grinder, I would just turn it on. This arm comes out over the end of it, and I would just move it across. And if I want to rake the angle, I can do that as well. Feels like a pretty good contact. A little low yet. There we go. So it's a little cumbersome in that you got to move the entire clamp. So if you just hold on to it, but it's not heavy. It's PVC and aluminum. The only thing that's steel is the handle, because that spins better when I'm making big adjustments, and the threaded rod and the nut that go down in there. So I've never weighed it, but it's not much. And it just tracks because it's riding on that rod. Again, I don't entirely understand all the math behind it, behind why it works, but it tracks around the belly really, really well. You know, into the tip. I didn't do anything fancy to make that line up. This knife has been in the kitchen sharpened only on coffee cups and mixing bowls for a long time, so it doesn't surprise me that it's taken a little bit of work. And this is, I think, a 400 grit Atoma. In reality, I'd be using a much rougher stone for something of unknown pedigree. But you can, as you can see, you can move, get a lot of stroke on here. as hard as you want to press, as long as you're pressing on the knife. If you start pressing on the clamp, the knife's going to probably twist in there. And then your angles will be off one side to the other. And there we go, I can feel a burr. I'm just going to set that down. So now that I have my operating angle, I can just take this, set it. If I want to go to a different finishing stone, I can do that. Or if I were going from the belt, I would have already had this value. I would have taken it right off the belt grinder. So now that I've got the rough edge ground in, I can be precise and, you know, measure the angle if I want, or I can just raise this up a little bit, tighten it down. I actually have a couple of spacers I'll just stick in there for a quick measurement. And just apply a quick micro bevel. Or you could run up through the works if you want. This is just a kitchen knife, so I'm really just taking the burr off. But as you can see, it allows for whatever kind of sweep you want. And this is the beater kitchen knife. I can't even believe it's still in service after all these years, but so that's it, and it comes back out pretty quick. So I'm locking it in. Did not take long. Applying the edge. Normally I would go right to like a 140 Atoma or a really coarse silicon carbide with an unknown knife, but it's all of a on a spectrum. So without doing anything too fancy, 400 Atoma and a few passes on the 1200. Just a kitchen utility edge. Alright, well thanks for watching. That's how it works. So once you get set up, you can actually move pretty quick with this thing if you have to. I have attachments for machetes and stuff. They work. They're pretty unwieldy. And really not necessary for that kind of job anyway. This is really mostly just for really expensive knives or a whole bunch of cheap ones. If I'm going from the belt grinder, I can literally set the belt grinder up, turn around, micro bevel, turn around, micro bevel. And it doesn't matter if I set it up, if I set this up at 14 degrees for this knife, something with a bigger blade is only going to be off a degree or two. So they all fall in pretty much the same. I can just put 2 fingers here and I know I'm going to be close on every knife pretty much. Only if there's a really big difference is it an issue. So if I set up on a chef's knife at 14 or 13 degrees aside, you know, the utility knife might be 14 or 15. It's not a big deal. Anyway, thanks for watching.